At 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March 2019, a security guard doing his rounds at the Old Melbourne Gaol stopped walking. He had worked the building for 11 years. He knew every creak of its bluestone floors, every draft that moved through the cell blocks. He had stopped believing in what the tourists paid to hear on the ghost tours. What he heard at 2:47 a.m. was not a creak, not a draft. It was, by his account filed in the incident log the next morning, the sound of a door closing, carefully, deliberately, in a section of the building locked since 10 p.m., to which he was the only person with a key. He filed the report. He used the word unexplained. He did not go back to that section alone. This video is not a ghost tour. Ghost tours are theatrical, managed experiences designed to produce fear in a context that is ultimately safe. This is about 12 specific places in Australia where documented accounts, examined across years and independent witnesses who never spoke to each other, produce a pattern the standard explanations don't fully cover. Some of these places are open to the public. Some are heritage sites. Some are abandoned. Some are operating institutions. All of them carry records, from the people who work in them, maintain them, or protect them, using the same specific vocabulary: unexplained, presence, return to daylight shift, requested reassignment. Stay to the end. Number 1 is not a prison or an asylum. It is a place open right now, that you could visit tomorrow, managed by people who know exactly what I'm about to describe, and who, when asked directly, have stopped denying it. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. And do not visit these places alone at night. Australia is a country built on layers. 65,000 years of Aboriginal history beneath the colonial infrastructure, convicts suffering beneath the heritage limestone, industrial deaths beneath the heritage plaques. The 12 places here share one quality: the people who know them best, not tourists, not historians, but security guards, overnight maintenance staff, cleaners with master keys alone at 3 a.m., describe experiences that are specific, consistent, and independent of each other. These are not ghost stories. These are incident reports. 12 places. Starting now. Number 12. The Old Melbourne Gaol and the section the ghost tour does not enter. The jail opened in 1845 and closed in 1929. It housed thousands of prisoners and was the site of 133 executions, including Ned Kelly's in 1880. It is now a heritage museum, and its ghost tour is one of the most popular in Australia. Managed, theatrical, designed for groups. It is an entertainment product. The people who run it know this. The section this entry concerns is not on the ghost tour. The original cell block furthest from the entrance, used for solitary confinement, sealed during heritage restoration, accessed only by maintenance and security staff with specific authorization. Security incident records from 1994 to the present contain 47 entries from 17 different individuals referencing unexplained sounds, movement, or presence in this section. Witnesses include long-serving guards, maintenance contractors unaware of the building's history, and a structural engineer brought in to assess the ceiling, who submitted a formal report to his own company describing the sensation of being watched from behind while facing the wall. He turned. The corridor was empty. He recommended future inspections be done in teams of 2. The report is in the file. Number 11. Port Arthur and the specific quality of the site after dark. From 1833 to 1877, Port Arthur was Tasmania's primary convict settlement, the last resort of colonial punishment, implementing control, labour, and eventually psychological manipulation through isolation and silence that drove a documented number of prisoners mad. 12,000 convicts passed through. Thousands died there. The Isle of the Dead holds over 1,000 graves. The mainland cemetery holds more. In April 1996, 35 people were killed there in the worst mass shooting in Australian history. Not the subject here, but part of what the site carries. Heritage rangers who've worked Port Arthur long-term describe a quality at night distinct from simple darkness. A weight, not auditory, not visual, most pronounced near the penitentiary ruins and the church, one they find hard to describe professionally. The ghost tour is theatrical. This weight is what rangers feel on ordinary nights when no tour runs. Number 10. Fremantle Prison and the exercise yard the incident reports describe. Fremantle Prison closed in 1991 after 136 years of operation and 44 executions. Now a UNESCO World Heritage Site with a well-regarded ghost tour, this entry instead concerns records from 1991 to the early 2000s, kept by a small maintenance staff with no commercial reason to embellish. Those records hold 17 entries from 11 staff members describing footsteps in the exercise yard beside the former execution chamber, slow, deliberate, circling, heard when the yard was visually confirmed empty. The last execution was in 1964. The footsteps begin appearing in 1992, across different staff, shifts, and weather. Maintenance professionals investigated, found the yard empty, and filed a report anyway. They used the word footsteps. Number 9. The Q station and the sounds the records document. The quarantine station on Sydney Harbour's North Head operated 1832 to 1984, diverting ships carrying cholera, smallpox, typhoid, or plague. 580 people died there, in hospital wards, isolation accommodation, and sometimes the shower blocks. The first building passengers entered to be stripped, disinfected, and assessed. Heritage records for the Q station document reports, across multiple years, of sounds heard in or near the shower blocks, not language, but the sounds people make when frightened and not yet finding words. The site now operates as a heritage hotel. Some guests report nothing. Some request room changes at 3 a.m. without fully explaining why, often without knowing beforehand that 580 people died on the grounds where they were staying. Number 8. Monte Cristo Homestead and what the owners have documented. Monte Cristo, in Junee, New South Wales, has been called the most haunted house in Australia, a claim many heritage buildings make commercially. Monte Cristo differs. The claim comes from the Crawley family, who bought it in 1963 and have lived there over 40 years, documenting experiences not for profit but because they've stayed consistent across 4 decades. Built in 1884, the homestead's history includes a coachman who burned to death in the stables, a maid who fell from the balcony, and a caretaker's son chained in the cottage for most of his life, who died there. The family's documentation is distinguished by mundane specificity: cold rooms in an otherwise warm house, doors found open when closed, a sense of being watched in specific rooms they've come to name. As Reg Crawley put it, the house has a quality of occupancy exceeding the family's own presence. The mundanity is the most credible thing about it. Number 7. Arradale Mental Asylum and C Block. Arradale, in Ararat, Victoria, operated 1865 to 1998. 13,000 people died within its walls, one of Victoria's largest psychiatric institutions, confining people for conditions from serious mental illness to epilepsy, unmarried pregnancy, and what was once classified as moral insanity. The site now runs ghost tours in accessible sections, but not in C Block, the oldest part of the 1865 building, sealed after a structural assessment, entered only by authorised maintenance staff. Their accounts, given reluctantly rather than for publicity, describe C Block resisting entry in a way that isn't structural or acoustic, a quality of opposition, a pressure against forward movement with no physical origin, some stopping involuntarily partway down the corridor. They haven't compared notes. They describe the same thing. Number 6. The Beechworth Lunatic Asylum and the accounts from its grounds. Beechworth, in Victoria, operated 1867 to 1995. Roughly 9,000 people died there across 128 years. Its grounds include an unmarked burial site for patients whose families didn't or couldn't claim them, known now mainly through institutional records. Part of the complex is now a hotel. Its gardens a public park, though the burial area isn't publicly marked. Overnight hotel maintenance staff and local Beechworth residents who walk or run the grounds, without coordinating with each other, report the same experience over the burial area, not being generally watched, but specifically, individually noticed by something aware of who is walking above it. Locals cross that section faster, without quite being able to say why. Roughly 3,000 people are buried there, some without ceremony. Number 5. The York Courthouse in Western Australia and its specific documentation. York, a small wheatbelt town roughly 100 kilometres east of Perth, has one of WA's oldest surviving court buildings, built in 1843, a site of trials, sentences, and executions from the colonial justice system's most direct era. It's not a famous destination, but its heritage records hold 63 separate reports of unexplained experiences across 4 decades, remarkable density for a small, intermittently staffed building with no commercial ghost tour. Reports come from locals, restoration tradespeople, and heritage officers alike. 41 of the 63 concern the holding cell, where people consistently describe a specific, practical reluctance to remain, not theatrical fear, just a sense they can't sustain being in the room. Prisoners held there awaited execution. The room has been empty since the courthouse closed. The reluctance people feel in it is not. Number 4. The Claremont Homestead in Tasmania and What the Animals Do. Claremont, in Tasmania's Derwent Valley, dates from the 1830s, a private working property, never publicised in ghost tourism. Its accounts come mainly from animals, horses and dogs used in farming and recreation, whose behaviour in specific spots has been noted by people working and living there over decades. Dogs that otherwise work the property refuse to cross into one outbuilding, stopping at the threshold with hackles raised. Fear behaviour directed at a space that looks empty to their handlers, consistent across different dogs and handlers. Horses ridden past a section near the old stone outbuildings shy and refuse there and nowhere else on the property, a response experienced riders describe as unlike ordinary horse skittishness. Animals carry no cultural expectations about haunted places. Whatever they're responding to isn't a story they've been told. Number 3. Pentridge Prison in Melbourne and the reports from people living in it. Pentridge, in Coburg, operated 1851 to 1997, one of Australia's largest and most significant prisons, site of 42 executions including Ronald Ryan's in 1967, the last hanging in Australia. After closing, it was redeveloped into residential apartments. People now live in former cells, some in the old solitary confinement sections, some adjacent to D Division, which held the condemned before execution. Community forums for the Pentridge Village development contain accounts from residents describing experiences they didn't expect when they bought, not for publicity, but questions asked of neighbours. Recurring themes: cold spots with no mechanical cause, unexplained night sounds, and in D Division adjacent apartments, a reluctant sense of not being alone. These are people's homes, not a heritage site with an acknowledged atmosphere, and 146 years of institutional history are in the walls. Number 2. The Criterion Hotel in Rockhampton, Queensland, and accounts spanning a century. Built in 1889 and continuously operating since, the Criterion is one of Queensland's oldest hotels, its ownership and style changing repeatedly over 130 years. Its documented unexplained experiences stretch back further than any other entry here, to the early 1900s, according to hotel records and long-term Rockhampton residents connected to the property. Room 7 generates the most consistent accounts, over a century of them, specific in the core experience, varied in the explanatory framework each era brought to it. That core experience, waking in the night in room 7 with an immediate certainty of not being alone, not quite fear, an involuntary awareness that is guests sitting up or turning toward the door before any sound is heard. Management hasn't changed the room's number or location. Some recent guests experienced it without knowing the history beforehand. Number 1. The place that is open right now and that you could visit tomorrow. The Willsmere Residential Complex in Kew, Victoria, is not a museum or ghost tour stop. It's an apartment complex where people live ordinary lives. The building is the former Kew Lunatic Asylum, open 1872 to 1988, housing over 1,000 patients at its peak, its Victorian Gothic architecture converted to apartments in the 1990s. Buyers knew it was a former psychiatric institution, drawn by the architecture and grounds, but most didn't research what happened in the specific rooms they bought. They looked at floor plans and kitchen finishes. Community forums and informal resident networks contain specific accounts, offered reluctantly by people with no interest in generating supernatural content, describing older converted ward sections where they report not being alone, doors found open when closed, and unexplained temperature shifts. The grounds include the former patient burial area, unmarked, landscaped over, walked through daily by residents. The building is open. You could visit someone who lives there tomorrow. 1,000 patients who lived and died in those wards are in the walls of apartments people occupy right now, and residents have been describing their experience in community forums for years. Do not visit these places alone at night. But if you must, know what you're walking into. Because the last thing these places need is more people who aren't paying attention. Share this video. Subscribe. And close the lights behind you. See you in the next one.